3, 2, 1, launching.
Canada, Poland, and South Korea have already booked their ticket to the round of 4. Who will join them? Who is going to be the remaining player in that round? Will it be Bly from the Ukraine, or will it be SpeCial from Mexico, representing their countries proudly? Welcome back to the analysis desk here. I am joined by Pig and Artosis to get things broken down for our next match. Gentlemen, Bly versus SpeCial. This is quite the clash of players that don't really normally get to go up against one another, Artosis.
Yeah, it certainly is. Obviously, they live pretty far apart, really across the world from each other. And the thing is, we don't really see SpeCial in Mexico that often. He spends a ton of time in Korea practicing with the Korean players, practicing with the other players that are over there to try to become the best player he possibly can. And we've seen that reflected in his results.
Yeah, Bly, of course, a veteran of the scene. He's been around for as long as SpeCial has been around, Pig. So he's going to try and probably bring some of his own flair, his own style to this series.
As he always does, you know, the Ukrainian Zerg, he's a powerful player, he's a unique player. He's a player who doesn't focus on the fundamentals of the game, but he's got a huge, rich experience.
Yeah.
He's got many creative styles. He plays his own version of the game, and that's what has brought him success in the past, and I'm sure that's what he's going to be going to in this series against SpeCial.
Yeah, definitely. For the remaining series of the day, of course, we can check in with the schedule to see how the results have gone on so far and what is to come. As you can see, our results are as follows, with Bly versus SpeCial about to come up here as Ukraine goes up against Mexico. So let's take a look really at these two players. Let's hone down on how they're going to face off against one another, because it's a very unconventional matchup here, as you have someone like SpeCial hailing from Mexico, one of the most dominant players of 2017 when it comes to the international scene, as he's been able to really step things up.
Well, I mean, his tournament results are really starting to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
He's got a ton of experience, as you already brought up, James. He's been playing at the top level of StarCraft for like 10 years now.
Right.
But last year, he was just hitting the top of all of the WCS circuit tournaments. He got top 4 at the World Championships at BlizzCon in 2017.
Yeah.
He just hit top 4 again like a week ago in WCS Leipzig. So he's on fire. He's really cemented himself as one of the absolute best Terrans in the world.
Yeah.
It used to be a story of, I think in some ways, squandered talent. Some people were saying, you know, this guy's great, but he wasn't getting the results for those many years. And it was really cool to see him step it up last year and really just put it into overdrive. You know, he changed the alias, the ID he played under. He said, I want the fans to see me in a different way because I feel like I'm starting a new step in my career. And you know, you can hear a competitor say something like that, but then to actually follow through on it, make it to the top 4 in the world last year, to still be consistently just kind of cleaving his way through these brackets, it's been really cool. And I think there's no one looking at the bracket now who says, oh, you know, SpeCial's doesn't have a good chance. He's got a great chance of winning the whole thing. He's one of the favorites. He was already touted as that even before we saw Serral go out, and now he's an absolute beast. He's a big monster for Bly to try and get through. A big challenge for the Ukrainian player.
Definitely. I mean, someone like SpeCial, just as you mentioned there, as a tidbit for people that may not know StarCraft 2, he's gone through many name changes in his career. Maybe he feels it's a reinvigoration moment when he's been called Major before, when he was called Windy before, when he was called, what on earth? He called himself Brittany one time. So he's gone through a lot of names in his time.
He has. You know, definitely a very colorful player within the scene as well. Everyone knows him. Everyone likes him, to be honest. He's a really friendly, good guy. And It's nice to see his skill finally catch up like
Yeah.
you're talking. You know, I thought he was going to be one of the best like 10 years ago, and it did
And
take
now
a
it's
while
here.
for the real results to come in. But now they're here, and to be honest, looking at this matchup, I'm feeling another top 4 for my boy.
Right, well, he's going to have to go through this guy, of course. Hailing from Ukraine, it is Bly.
My nickname is Bly. I'm Ukrainian player. I was born in Zhytomyr, but right now I moved to Kyiv and I live here for like 1 year. Even though I live in Kyiv for 1 year already, I do discover new places every month or even every week. There is so much new places. Their amount is really hard to describe.
Мой сын начал играть в компьютерные игры после того, как обыграл всех моих друзей в шахматы и хотел расти, по-видимому, дальше в своих стремлениях. Я ему купил компьютер, и он начал играть в стратегии, StarCraft, подобные.
When I finished uni, I had an option. One is to go to normal job, like all other people, or stay with my hobby that was giving me enough money to live. And I decided to stay with my hobby because passion is what I'm enjoying and my job is what I like. I'm such a person that I'm putting my goals quite high, and achieving my goal is usually impossible. But I'm getting close to it step by step.
First time when I met Bly, I thought that all pro gamers are like zombies, and I couldn't imagine how to be in a relationship with a pro gamer. But now I can tell for sure that pro gamers could be the best man, best husbands ever. He's really hardworking person, but at the same time he has time for us, for our family, and our life together is like a very big adventure, really.
My parents never had anything against me being a pro gamer, even when I didn't get any income from this. They was happy that I am trying to achieve a big goal. And right now, for example, my dad is my biggest fan. He's staying awake till like 5 a.m. if I'm in USA and watch my streams.
Я самый преданный фанат моего сына, смотрю все его игры, не пропуская ни одного стрима. Больше всего порадовало меня его поздравление или его привет в прямом эфире с его победой в мой день рождения. Наибольшим подарком для меня был его привет в прямом эфире украинских отборочных по StarCraft 2, когда он занял первое место.
The main secret to become a really successful player in StarCraft 2 is having a balance of self-motivation and passion. If you ever will stop to be passionate about what you are doing, I'm not sure that you can achieve anything in it, because your opponent, who will have passion to what he's doing, he will improve every day, while you will stay at the same level. Thanks to StarCraft 2, I was able to visit like 15 countries, maybe more. And I was able to compete all over the world in the world best tournaments. And of course, I had a lot of friends all over the world thanks to this. I am 29 years old and I am playing StarCraft 2 for ages, I feel like. I'm still passionate about it. I still love what I'm doing, and I will still be able to play StarCraft 2 till I'm able to compete and enjoy it, of course.
Always good to hear from Bly, of course. And we can actually take a look already at our first map. Pig, why don't you give us a bit of a rundown as to what might happen here?
Let's go straight into it and walk you guys through Eastwatch. So this is a fantastic map. It's one of the new ones. And let's imagine, of course, there's two players spawning in opposite corners of the map. Let's start with the player up here in the top right-hand side of the screen. Very good at using my drawing tool there.
It's all good.
And we are going to see, let me fix that up. They're going to take their expansion here, and this is where they start to decide. Do they take the regular third base here, very easy to defend, or the gold base, which actually gives you faster mining, but it's much harder to defend. Part of the reason for that is if you look at the regular third on the south side, there's actually destructible rocks. If you take those down, you can wall off the entrance to it.
Right.
On the other hand, if your opponent tries to strike in between your bases when you've taken the gold base, they can actually knock these rocks down here, and that completely cuts off your ability to reinforce between the natural and the third base. So there's a big decision in terms of do you want the safe expansion or the much greedier one. The other key point on this map is your fastest path between you and your opponent's bases is right there, and there's also two sets of rocks there and there that can be taken down and changing the paths on the map. So there's a lot of decisions on this map with how the players want to play, how do they want to manipulate the structure of the map, and are they going to go for the greedier third expansion or play for the much safer one?
All right, well, thank you very much, Pig, as I'm going to head over to get us introduced to our commentators for this next match. We have Tasteless and we have Nathanias. You excited for this one? Just short before we get things going?
I am very excited for this. I was casting Bly earlier on in this tournament, and he did a phenomenal job, but I think this is going to be a much tougher opponent for him. SpeCial, very scary to go up against.
All right, well,
very excited.
We've got to get this going, Nate. We're on a time as we get our last round of 8 match going here as Ukraine goes up against Mexico.
We are about to begin the best of 5 between Bly and SpeCial to fill in that final slot in the final 4 of the Intel Extreme Masters here in PyeongChang. SpeCial, hailing from Mexico, has been playing StarCraft, actually starting in StarCraft 1 at a very, very young age. I think he might have started playing at 9, actually. So this has been a long and hard road to get to the successes that he's had in 2017 and now coming into 2018. He was very dominant in the World Championships just at the end of December, or I should say at the start of December, excuse me. And he got the breakout results as far as a non-Korean player dominating.
I mean, the story for him last year was that he was the player to defeat 2 of the top Korean players in the world in the group stage of the World Finals, and he's built up that hype level, he's built up that momentum, and Bly comes in as another storied veteran of StarCraft 2. He doesn't have the same sort of repertoire about him as this guy who's gone and lived in Korea and practiced in Korea and learned from the best players in the world like SpeCial has, but he's been a staple in the European scene. There is no tournament that you won't see Bly competing in, and I loved being able to see that piece about him, to hear a little bit more about his life, because he is such a nice guy, one of the sweetest dudes you will meet at one of these tournaments, and he really shows his love for the game. And he plays a very interesting style, and I think that's going to mesh in a very interesting way versus SpeCial's methodical Korean-inspired play.
I agree completely. We've already seen some of the European players struggle against the Korean style, even if those players are not Koreans who are using them. We have a lot of players training and practicing over in Seoul with the very best in the world, and SpeCial is one of them. But first, introducing his opponent in the upper right, in the blue, from Ukraine, he is Bly.
He faces off against the red Terran player in the southwest, representing Mexico. He is SpeCial. Of course, formerly known as Major.
He's changed his ID so many times.
And you know, he's played for so long, and I love commentating special play because he was a regular competitor in the WCS America circuit. I've commentated so many of Special's games, and they're always a treat. He's always doing something a little bit different than the other non-Korean Terran players would be doing, because he does practice and he does talk to the Koreans so much, and he has spent so much time there that his style always seems to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of everybody else that's competing in the American and European regions.
Now, his opponent, Bly, has been known for being a very deceptive player. He likes to get into a lot of tactical scenarios, especially in the early mid-game and mid-game, to try to cripple his opponent. And a lot of times from there, he'll follow that up with a pretty clean closer. Bly is also somebody who's known for not really following a standard orthodox StarCraft 2 style of play, which really means that his opponents have to play against Bly the player, not just Zerg the race.
Yeah, so in a normal match, you would have expectations of what a Zerg player will do, but up against Bly, you have to throw those expectations out the door. And we see that Special opens up with his scouting unit, and usually it's not the Zerg players that are building things across the map, but Bly is one of those guys that will do that. Special has to take extra consideration for the things that Bly is capable of doing. Those hidden bases next to yours, the Nidus plays where he may go for an all-in attack where he tunnels his army across the map. There's so many things that you don't see a whole lot, but when it comes to Bly, you almost see it all the time.
That's right. Now, even though Bly is very strong at this style, Special is certainly cognizant of this dilemma that he is going to have to be ready for pretty much anything. And I would say overall, Special, somebody who shows a lot of tenacity from the start of the game to the finish of the game. There'll be a lot of games where Special gets in a position where he's actually behind for a little bit, but then still manages to engineer a comeback. So I think if Bly is going to win this game with the style we traditionally know him for, it's going to have to be a pretty tremendous blow in order to finish a player like Special off.
Yeah, and so far in this game, we haven't seen anything crazy just yet. The big tech choice for Special is about to come out as he's acquiring his Hellions to complement the Reaper to get the map control, but is he going to do a Banshee build? Will it be a fast Raven, perhaps a Liberator? We see that it's the Raven. This gives him some harassment opportunities, but Bly already able to sneak in a few Zerglings inside of the natural expansion. He's trying to disrupt the economy, not doing a whole lot, but he's going for his second tier of tech, and he's going into Roaches. So it'll be a little bit more of a tanky force. They won't be weak against the Hellions. And Special needs to be careful if he wants to play a mechanical style where he uses these fast, expensive units, or excuse me, the fast scouting units early on, and switches into the slow army later, that he doesn't get caught off guard by a fast attack.
And it seems like Special now pushing out on his side of the map and seeing if he can't get any worker kills over here. Every kill he can get in that regard. Taking out a worker that would be mining resources is one way to just get slightly ahead. And wow,
and here we go.
You actually called this just about a minute ago, Nathanius. So we are seeing a Nidus network technique being applied here. So momentarily, Bly will attempt to tunnel his entire army across the map. If Special does not respond as quickly and as efficiently as possible, this game will snowball out of control. And the fact that Special is out on the map right now trying to put some pressure on Bly means there's really nothing back at home to help defend, which could turn this game on its head, causing Special to lose in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, it's a very dicey situation as Special is committed to an economic game. We can see the Nidus Worm burrowing, but Special cannot. He does not have a unit nearby as the tunnel begins to complete inside of his base. There's some Raven harass going, but there's about to be a whole Zerg army inside. And we talked about those Hellions. They are not effective against the Roaches, which means all of the workers will have to come off the mineral line to attempt to fight this. A few of the Roaches do get stuck going down this ramp into the natural. He's trying to spread things out. A siege tank pops out. He needs to keep that tank alive.
Okay, the tank is now sieged up. We have a line of workers trying to blockade the army of Bly from getting too close, but is there simply too much? As far as Zerg has, already 23 workers have been mowed down, now spiking up into 36. for the sacrifices made in order to keep that tank alive, I'm concerned he won't have much of an economy left after this.
SpeCial clears out the roaches, but the 2 Nidus Worms in his base have killed all but 6 of his workers. He has lost just about his entire economy. He has some army forces left, but the queens are still here getting some damage in. I think Bly may consider he's just going to try to trade them out. He could try to run them back into the worm and go back home with them. A Liberator is going to come out, and this attack is going to stop for now.
Okay, so he evacuates the remaining forces over there out of the base. When it's all said and done, Bly with 40 workers and SpeCial
This income
with
advantage.
7.
Oh boy.
I gotta say, this is going to be a real uphill fight. I know I was mentioning earlier that SpeCial has been behind in games and managed to come back, but even for SpeCial, this is going to be, I would say, nearly impossible. There are so many avenues where Bly can take this game in order to dismantle his opponent. So it seems as though SpeCial's response to this is to try to punch back, punching up, I'd say in this case.
Yeah.
And if this attack does not work, the degree to which SpeCial will be vulnerable is hard to emphasize enough.
If this attack fails and he loses his army, he could also just try to launch another Nidus back across the map and tunnel once more. But the investments being made by Bly right now, he's going for tech, he's going for upgrades. He's not investing in army units to a huge degree. Now he sees this push is coming. This army is a very serious force to deal with. This was the last bastion of hope that SpeCial had to defend, and he has to clean this up. If he can, he'll take the map.
We see SpeCial leapfrogging forward, trying to be as safe as possible as he positions up. But every second that goes by means Bly will be mustering a bigger and bigger army. And if SpeCial doesn't do critical damage quickly, this army will be gobbled up by Bly, possibly ending this game.
Yeah, the Marines have stepped up the ramp. The siege tanks sitting safely behind the bio forces. Bly is going to come down onto this army. The roaches are trying to get close to the Marines to cause that friendly fire, but the Liberator's helping out in a large amount. One of the siege tanks is picked off, but the Liberator and the tanks and the Marines have still been able to stand strong outside the natural. The economy has not been attacked yet, but Bly needs to get more units on the field immediately.
This would be an insane comeback if SpeCial could actually pull this off. There's nothing here to heal the Terran army. A small number of reinforcements coming up on the way, but so far SpeCial does manage to hold on.
Yeah, the Liberator is really helping to cover those roaches trying to dive under the ramp while those Marines pull back. And Bly is he is reeling against this. During all of this, SpeCial is continuing to rebuild back home. He's starting to try to put that economy back together. But look at this. As his units come out, he starts to clean this up. He's got the Ravagers to do it, but another Nidus Worm is tunneling. GG!
Nicely done there by Bly, but for a minute, it was starting to look a little bit dicey there for SpeCial. I mean, I gotta say,
yeah,
like,
I was getting carried away there at the end.
I was, yeah.
I'm like,
Oh my
is he
God,
actually
he's
gonna
still
hold
got an
this?
army pushing through. Really, really nicely done, and a very good start here by Bly. SpeCial, you could see why he's somebody who has the ability to hang on even when the odds are
It's a
quite
crazy
bad.
game.
But look, that all came down to the position of the armies before the attack had ever occurred. SpeCial being comfortable pushing out was actually very intelligently punished by Bly.
Yeah.
And I think we may see, perhaps in the early game, a little bit more conservative play. Then again, another question to ask ourselves is, can Bly really pull a strategy like that off again in a best-of-5? I don't know.
I mean, the next question that we ask is, what makes it good? Why did it work? And on that map, Bly went for a strategy. The Nidus Worm is not affected by the distance that you're going on the map. And that was such a large map that for SpeCial to bring his units home was going to take him longer than most of the other maps in this pool, which really complicated things for him. So I like the choice of the Nidus. Your main base has a lot of space. He didn't have vision of the area where the Nidus Worm came in, and because of that, Bly was able to punish him. And, well, you saw he put his whole army inside SpeCial's base.
I do want to point out, Bly several times had a hard time stopping himself from smiling after pulling off that last victory.
He has too much fun playing this game.
Yeah, well, it's going to be even more fun for him if he's taking out a player like SpeCial. But that was just game number one. As we move on now into game number 2. In the bottom left, in the blue, hailing from Ukraine, he is Bly.
He faces off against this man in the top right. the Red Terran player hailing from Mexico. He is SpeCial. And it almost feels like on a map like that, SpeCial just kind of tunnel visioned on his build, on what he wanted to do. The Raven harass, into the upgrades, into that big infantry-based army, and then just hadn't considered that this would be something that Bly would be going for in that game. And I think it should be a good wake-up call for him. SpeCial in a long game, I think, is a favored player, and he just needs to keep his head on a swivel against whatever else Bly may throw his way.
I have to say, I was actually a bit surprised to see Bly get that aggressive, even though we've been talking about how he likes to pick a lot of fights. Normally, I expect the game to go on a little bit longer. That's almost as dramatic as you can get as far as a strategy just to start things off in a best of 5. But there is, I think, good reason why we make players, when you are in a competition this big and this competitive, play several games in a row.
Well, I mean, just think about the impact that it has on SpeCial. Regardless of whether Bly tries a similarly aggressive build or strategy in this series, SpeCial will now have to consider that as a possible threat for the rest of the match. If he feels like he's being greedy, maybe he'll slow down, or he'll make a mistake fearing that Bly will have the opportunity to do another huge aggressive commitment like that. And if that's the case, we might not see SpeCial play as freely as he's used to.
As we see now, SpeCial sending out his first scout to try to get an idea of what exactly Bly's going to up to look for any kind of reads. Now, Bly this game, will he try to do anything wildly aggressive? I'm just not sure. A lot of times these super aggressive players, they can't win too many games in a row. Few StarCraft players historically will always be able to pull this off. That's why
unless
normally,
you're SOS, right?
Yeah, that's right. Unless you're SOS. But the thing about SOS, he can still stay back and play a conservative game. That's why he's scary.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and it makes me wonder, with the size of the map being smaller, it kind of lends itself more. If Bly wants to be aggressive, then he should be able to do that, you would think, a little more easily, but maybe SpeCial's just going to be more cautious about it. He does go for the Hellions. We have the Starport on the way. It could very well be that Raven opener again, but the beauty of the Terran build order in this meta, in this era of strategy, is that he can go for several different options. He has access to Liberators. He can go for the Banshees. He can go for Ravens. We still see Medivacs with Widow Mines and Hellions all the time, and even Hellbats.
You know, it's very important to note that a lot of the best builds in StarCraft are ones that start out looking vague, so that you can then transition them into whatever kind of strategy you want. That's why it was so wild to see Bly do that right off the bat.
There's not a whole lot of transitions out of tunneling your army across the map.
Exactly. So, a very good scout here by Bly, once again. The gods of StarCraft have smiled on him. Again, he gets his Zergling in there. And he gets a little bit of scouting to try to get a read on what exactly his opponent's doing. Now, we do see a Roach Warren. That doesn't necessarily
it's
mean
still
he has
similar,
to do anything crazy, but it's Bly, so I'm never going to count him out.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do the same thing as last game, but he has a couple of different options. We see Zerglings being made. I think the key difference this game is that Bly has not rushed that lair, I don't think. So this means that he can use the Roaches defensively against any sort of Hellion play, but without that higher level of tech, he can't actually get the Nidus Worm. So maybe he'll play more economically, or he'll play aggressively with lower tier units. The Reaper comes in to scout the natural, and it's going to be picked up by these Lings, but he sees, so far, no lair.
That's right. He does see that Roach Warren starting here. Now, we have 7 Roaches on the way, 5 drones being made behind it, and the lair starts later on. Now, if we look at the number of expansions each side has, it is Zerg up with 3 bases, 2 specials, 2 bases, although we see from the structures he's creating, he is planning on acquiring a 3rd base pretty soon. Now, this is all pretty par for the course in a Zerg versus Terran. Zerg is a race, always wants to be ahead in expansions because of how their economy operates. So in a situation like this, we would probably deem this a fairly even game. A SpeCial trying to come in and do a little bit of harassment, trying to do a little bit of damage, but so far, nothing too tremendously impactful.
Yeah, that Liberator comes in and grabs a few kills, but Bly wants to apply some pressure back the other way. However, a siege tank is set up behind the wall. The Roaches will not be able to get close enough to actually attack, but it looks like he still wants to commit a little bit more. He's going to turn these roaches into Ravagers, which gives him that corrosive bile ability, which will give him more range to break the wall down. And if that siege tank exposes itself or there's not enough around it to defend it, he could try to jump on that too, or at least just contain SpeCial, keep him inside this 2-base setup.
It seems like this is set up to not necessarily end the game, but to really keep the pressure on Terran here, to get some free kills up at the front, to make Terran try to defend even more. And really, Bly is asserting his dominance on the map here. Now, SpeCial tries a counterattack. So far, it's been deflected. His army is driving that back while the workers are still safe.
Yeah, the Zerglings grab some damage on the Hellions. The Ravagers and Roaches will go back. I mean, stepping up and killing that siege tank is a really big deal, though. In TVZ, when you're playing a Terran versus Zerg, you want to get your siege tanks up to that 3-4 count for when you're taking that base. As your stim finishes, you get your medevacs, combat shield. When your upgrade's complete, you want to use those units that build very slowly once they stack up to make that big push so that you can get a bit of momentum going. But every loss early on hurts a lot for that. So let's see what he can do with this medevac. He's got some Marines moving out. Assuming he wants to clear the creep to prevent Bly from taking over the map, but can he actually get some damage done? Can he kill some drones, maybe kill one of the queens?
Well, you know, it seems to me like this is some counter pressure here. SpeCial now has an army upgraded enough he can try to get into Bly's face a little bit. But Bly has already got a pretty decent amount. Unfortunately, not quite controlling that as well as I think he could have now. SpeCial then dives in, punishing Bly. And this is actually something that could begin to spiral out of control here. SpeCial, again, very good in these little tactical scenarios, eking out as much damage before then pulling away, regrouping, and coming in for more.
Yeah, that's the advantage for Terran. Against a composition like this, we don't really have a whole lot of anti-air capabilities for Bly, which means that those transports that are flying across the map for SpeCial, there's not really an easy way to deal with them, so he wants to keep poking and prodding. The choice of tech for Bly so far, he's going into Infestors, he's getting a few Infestors, he's making his way to Hive Tech, so without really having built much other than Roaches and these 2 Infestors, I wonder where he's going to go with that Hive Tech. If he's going to go straight to Ultras, maybe Broodlords. He doesn't have a Spire, though.
Oh, look at this. There's actually a small opening, and SpeCial decides he can try to once again come in here. Now, with the medevacs being able to fly, it puts some pressure on Bly because they can always pick up and leave and then drop back in and hit any location.
He doesn't have anti-air capabilities with this army, and his Marines are going to pressure the southeast expansion. The Roaches are not strong. You know, they're known for being these cheap, durable units, but they don't scale that well as you get into the later stages of the game, and SpeCial's going to be able to push those away. He's going to kill more of the workers of Bly, and he could just keep bouncing between these bases.
Nathanius, this almost seems like a game that could end up as death by 1,000 cuts. As we're seeing SpeCial begin to chip away unit by unit, and the moment he sees an engagement that is unfavorable, he then picks up and relocates. So the exchanges here are really quite favorable by SpeCial. Now, that being said, I would not say Bly is not doing a bad job continuing to develop his economy, but now we see SpeCial moving out, and because we see tanks incorporated into the mix, we know that this is a push that he wants to try to hold ground in.
Yes.
And I think what he wants to do is try to punish the Zerg on a 4th base, because right now, the growth rate from SpeCial is pretty crazy. He's actually getting a 4th base of his own. If a Terran on 4 bases can knock a Zerg onto 3 bases, economically, the Zerg is going to be starved.
And if you look at the tech that Bly's going for, all of his resources he's been saving for this Ultralist transition. He wants these big, burly Tier 3 units to knock down these weak men with guns, but it takes a lot of time to get there, so he doesn't have anything to defend his expansion. It gets picked off very quickly, and the reinforcements for SpeCial defend against the Zergling counterattack. And SpeCial can say, hey, I don't actually need to do anything else. I can just go home, I can transition into better units and prepare for whatever transition you're making, Bly.
Now this is a sign of a very smart player. I'm talking about SpeCial, actually backing up and regrouping. He killed that expansion. He backs up, he's going to regroup, and he is just, in so many ways, staying so far ahead of his opponent. He also identified what you were talking about earlier, Nathanius, the fact that there is a big Ultralist tech coming up here. Bly does attempt to have it engage over there. It seems as though he wants to sandwich his opponent, but the fact that SpeCial seems to be able to dart out to the left, shutting off a real flank from actually occurring and then coming back and shutting down the flank on the other side is making the coordination of Bly's attacks a lot more difficult to pull off. Wow, just shuts a base down again.
Yep, denies the expansion once more, and the Ultralisks are out, but Bly needs to wait for a few more upgrades to complete for them to be as effective as they can be. And this big drop, he shuffles the army into the main base. The primary structure for Bly is under fire. He's going to throw a fungal growth down to hold this army in place so that he can knock it down with his Ravagers, but he's not going to be able to get the majority of the forces.
Yeah, most of them managed to escape, and meanwhile, an overextension here in the north by Bly. SpeCial has already outgrown in army size and worker size his opponent.
This army's not running away. He's not clicking it far enough away to actually run away from these forces, so he loses all the Ultralisks in the northeast of the map. And this army, I mean, it shouldn't be able to kill those Ultras, but if he fights off creep, he does have the ability to just run away and keep shooting and, you know, kite the Zerg army. And we do see the Ghost transition coming up, and I do really like this. This is the primary unit that you're going to use to kill just about everything in this version of the game. That snipe ability on it does an insane amount of damage. It has, it doesn't overkill anymore. It has the ability to destroy these expensive units very quickly and very easily.
And you can see so many locations where SpeCial is trying to bleed Bly out. This has been an incredibly uncomfortable game. And this really highlights the difference between the two players from game 1 to game 2. Bly, deceptive, able to end the game right away, but if you let SpeCial stay in the game long enough, he is far too sophisticated with where and how he attacks. By the way, we have another major push coming through the center. It's paramount that Bly stops this, or this game will end.
Yeah, this force is moving up towards that third base. The tanks are sieged. The Ultralisks are trying to collapse on top of this. The Zerglings get onto the tanks, but the Ghosts are looking for the snipes on the Ultralisks, and they are going to get them. SpeCial eviscerates Bly's army.
Beautifully done, and that's going to do it. GG. SpeCial takes game number 2.
Mexico strikes back in this best of 5, tying things 1-1 with the Ukrainian Zerg. Leonidas into the bio push, that just solid Marine tank play, and Bly a little bit greedy, rushing up for that highest tier of tech without a real mid-game composition. It caused him to be unable to defend his economy, and without that economy, he can't really build those tier 3 units he needs in the first place.
That's right. I think Bly sourly reminded of who he's really up against here in game 2. And this is tough because in a few moments we're going to be jumping into game 3, and Bly has to come up with an opener that he believes can allow him to get an advantage and ultimately pull out a win. And you know, SpeCial is pretty bulletproof.
Yeah,
pretty much anything. But if I were Bly,
especially in the late game,
exactly, the late game is probably where he's really his scariest. And I think we might have to see something a little bit tricky from Bly, but of course, the question is what and will SpeCial be ready? Because, you know, SpeCial, you know, when you win a game of StarCraft 2 in a series like this, you don't say, you don't go blank and just try to rinse and repeat what you did last time. You have to try to think of what hand does your opponent have in this poker game of how do you open up.
Yeah, and in this match, and what you just said is so perfectly put, Tasteless, because SpeCial, he doesn't need to vary it too much. He doesn't want to be predictable, but he can play that slow style every game. Bly now, he's on the back foot. He has to make some tough choices about the way that he wants to try and get this game back, because taking it to the late game against SpeCial, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work.
Introducing our first player. In the blue, in the upper left, from Ukraine, he is Bly.
He faces off against the red Terran player in the southeast of Backwater. He, representing Mexico, is SpeCial.
And as we
that's
go
what we're
into,
talking about.
That's it. Okay. I was about to say, well, what strategy will Bly pick? Well, game 1 was one of the fastest, most aggressive ways to play. Game 3 now, Bly has upped the ante even more.
Yeah.
He's taking his first base in an unorthodox location. In a normal game of StarCraft, you are trying to expand close to your starting location because it's easier to defend. This time around, he's expanding right outside of the entrance of the soon-to-be expansion of SpeCial's base. Now, he's not really expanding so much here to mine resources and go into an economy game. He's wait, okay, he sees it.
Okay, he knows.
So you're taking this location because you want to try to attack into your opponent very quickly. But
you want to eliminate that defender's advantage for your enemy.
But in this case, SpeCial spots it with very good instincts. That does not mean it will be easy for SpeCial to stop, as this rush is just about to start.
Yeah, we see the Roach Swarm being built for Bly, so it's likely that he'll try a strategy that revolves around using his first Overlord, which can give high ground vision to use Corrosive Biles, the Ravager's ability to deal a ton of area of effect damage from a very far distance, and smash down the walls, move his way forward, and just pick off SpeCial's defenses one by one, as these units, these Marines, they're strong in the later game when they have all their upgrades, but in the start of the game, they're not quite able to go toe-to-toe with these early aggressive Zerg units.
Now, Terran as a race can be quite fragile early on, and that's really what SpeCial's trying to exploit. Now, SpeCial did not relocate his buildings, which are actually on the low ground, not the high ground, but it seems as though behind this, SpeCial is trying to set up a barricade as quickly as possible and brace for impact. And if this strategy from Bly does not work right away, Bly will have almost no other opportunities to win this game. Bly intelligently gets in between the barracks and the bunker. One more Marine will be able to get inside, but from there, the Ravager Rush commences, and this is very, very hard to hold.
Yeah, that one Ravager for Bly going a little bit further forward up the ramp than maybe he was intending, taking a lot of damage. Workers are being brought to repair that base, but, you know, this is a strategy now. I asked myself if he did this because he knows that SpeCial has a tendency to put those structures on the low ground, as he's able to kill that supply depot for free in this instance and force the barracks to relocate. But once that siege tank comes out, this starts to turn very difficult because SpeCial was able to scout this so early.
So, there's only a few, or I should say a small amount of time for Bly to try to make this work. The tank is now out, and it seems like Bly is pulling the trigger. He comes in, and the bunker goes down. Marines being pulled back. Workers gunned down almost immediately. The tank has been targeted, and it's taken out as well.
A fantastic assault by Bly, moving in at the last possible moment before the defenses were completely situated for SpeCial, and now he's inside. The workers are being pulled to fight against this. He's dropping the Corrosive Biles to shut down those forces, and the SCVs having to fight against this proxied attack by Bly. He has to be so careful to defend against this, but I don't know what he's supposed to do. That siege tank is going to pop out, and it's going to be right in the face of the Zerg enemy.
If SpeCial can't stabilize in the next minute or so, he will lose this game, and he taps out.
GG. Bly takes a 2-1 lead in this best of 5, striking back, sticking to his guns, getting scouted, and keeping his cool.
If it's not broken, don't fix it. Bly is 1 win away from moving on to the Final Four, and this would be an upset if he managed to take out SpeCial. SpeCial, who placed the highest amongst any player who is not a Korean in the Global Championships just a few months ago, now has to really try to play it safe, and we'll see if he can do that. We are going to take a short break here at the Intel Extreme Masters in PyeongChang, and when we come back, game number 4 with Bly versus SpeCial.